Welcome to the No Name Music Cast. To follow us on Instagram, go to No Name Music Cast Podcast. To send us an email, it's nonamemusiccast@gmail.com. And to visit our website, go to nonamemusiccast.com. Now, on with the show. Hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to the No Name Music Cast. My name's Tim, and this is
Joy.
And here we are, Wednesday night, a very passionate pre-record chat as ever. Joy and I
gotta do like a thing, Tim, where people who are like actual fans could see us for the 10 minutes before we record.
Yeah, as I said, the No Name Music Cast After Dark or something we should call it.
Yeah, just be prepared. It's a little more intense than I think you guys realize.
Exactly. It often touches on topics that we wouldn't necessarily discuss in a music podcast, but there you go.
There we go. All right. Well, I think Tim is going to start us off. He has a little bit of music news he's going to hit us with.
Yeah, so I have a couple of items this week. So first off, our friend Sammy Hagar, the Red Rocker. Now, you all enjoyed the Red episode, which I think posted last week or the week before. But the Red Rocker Sammy Hagar, as I may have said, has started a Vegas residency. Now, he said that he doesn't want to tour anymore. I believe he's 77 years old, 76 years old. And he said, he's getting a little old now. And he says the whole touring game of traveling, not sleeping properly, staying in hotel rooms, eating bad food. He says he feels at his age and his point of life, he doesn't want to do that anymore. However, he likes the idea of the Vegas residency. He can play 20 gigs in the same place.
Everybody does.
Yeah.
When they hit a certain age.
Yeah, you only have to sound check once. You can go down and practice in the afternoons if you want. It's all good. So he started this Vegas residency. However, that is not the music news item. The music news item is he has come out with a brand new song. This song is called Encore, Thank You, Good Night. And he is using the touring band that he's touring with at the moment, which is him, Michael Anthony from Van Halen on the bass. He has Kenny Aronoff, who is a session drummer to the Starrs, and Joe Satriani on guitar. And the thing is, this song apparently came to him in a dream, and it was Eddie Van Halen gave him the information about this song in a dream, and he woke up and he wrote a load of stuff down, and this is his tribute to Eddie Van Halen. Apparently, and Eddie came to him in this dream to bring him this song.
I mean, that sounds like the most musician thing I've ever heard in my entire life, Tim.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that sounds like Sammy Hagar did some recreational relaxing, and then was like, "Whoa, there's Eddie over there."
I don't know what we're talking about, Tim. I don't know what recreation relaxing is. Never done in my life. But if I had, I can tell you right now, it does affect your dreams.
He says, this song is my final bow to that part of my life. It's not meant to be anything more than a thank you with love, with respect, and one hell of a guitar solo. That's what he says. I mean, Joe Satriani is channeling Eddie Van Halen a little bit more on this track with the techniques and stuff that he's using. And, it's okay. I mean, there's nothing wrong with this song. I mean, it's no Hot for Teacher, or it's no Why Can't This Be Love, or anything like that. But, it's a nice thing to have in 2025 that Sammy Hagar is releasing Van Halen-inspired music. But there we are. The Red Rocker, he's completely relentless. He cannot be stopped.
I mean, I think that's fair. I haven't listened to the song, but now I have to. I'll listen to it after this episode and give you guys full thoughts on it. But I think that Tim's probably right. It's just right on brand, really.
Yeah, he said he woke up from his dream. I just grabbed a pen and a pencil, and I got my iPhone. My wife screaming, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Writing a song." And it just kept coming and coming. And when I got up the next day, I grabbed my guitar and started to figure out the chords.
Wait, okay, so did you get the pen and pencil and write it down, or did you type it in your iPhone, Mr. Red Rocket?
I mean, he has lots of things available to him. I mean, all good musicians should have all the recording devices on the nightstand.
Just saying, there's a lot done back there. All right. Did you have anything else you'd like to say, sir?
I have one other thing. This is
Okay.
a rock in peace this week. We had to say
Ooh,
goodbye to Roy Thomas Baker. Now,
I saw that.
Roy Thomas Baker was the producer of a number of Queen albums, famously A Night at the Opera and Jazz. Now, from A Night at the Opera, he was famously the producer of Bohemian Rhapsody. And he's
Yeah.
actually depicted in the Bohemian Rhapsody film that came out a few years ago.
Though they didn't do his hair justice, I'm just gonna say it.
No, they didn't. But I mean,
That's a whole other debate. The hair was not right.
yeah, I
Continue.
mean, but maybe during that time he didn't have that hair. I don't know
That's true. I only know him now where it's like uberly white.
exactly. But I mean, he also produced the Cars. He also worked with Foreigner. He worked with The
Hmm.
Darkness. He was also an engineer that worked on the free track All Right Now and Bang a Gong. He famously worked at Trident Studios in London. I mean, he was quite the super producer, and so much good music has sort of come through his fingertips. So, unfortunately, we said we had to say goodbye to him this week. He was 78. They didn't say how we lost him, but I mean, maybe just through old age. I don't know, but he was quite the character in a lot of music that everybody loves.
It's super interesting you bring him up because I saw the headlines and I saw the picture. I was like, man, his hair. But in all seriousness, when I was reading through him, I mean, I have heard his name before because Decca Records, 14, and the thing about it is I didn't realize how many people he worked with. He's one of those like I don't know if they're like sleeper cells, Tim. We've talked about them like they're in the background that you don't realize are there at all times. But it sounds like he had worked from everybody from like Frank Zappa to the Rolling Stones and so on and so forth.
Yeah, that's it. He was quite the producer. And I said his fingers have touched a lot of great music that you would love. But anyhow, Roy Thomas Baker, sir, rock in peace. You will always be remembered by the great music that you helped create.
Exactly. All right. So, with that being said, I have a little bit of music news, and then we're going to go into tonight's episode. It is one of my episodes, but I made Tim listen to Jack Black's Minecraft anthem. First of all, Tim, what did you think of the chicken song?
I was confused what was going on, to be honest with you. I know what Minecraft is, I think it's a video game.
It is.
I've never played this video game. Isn't it like the one that looks really blocky?
Yes, it's like a building. You can build anything you want, really.
So I didn't know they were making a Minecraft film until Joy sent me that link.
So what's so interesting about this is the shortest song ever to reach the Billboard Hot 100. It isn't by Lady Gaga. It isn't by Taylor Swift. It's by Jack Black from the Minecraft movie, right? It's called Steve's Lava Chicken. I don't know what the lava chicken is. So I will be honest. I know the basis of Minecraft and I played it once, but it received 7 million streams nationwide. To be honest, it's just a play on what we love about Jack Black. Let's be honest, Tim. He's great at like a jingle. That's all it is. It's just a jingle in its moment. But it debuted at number 78. It reached number 10 in the Hot Rock Songs on the Billboard charts. And it has now booped out, which is Kid Cudi's 37-second long song called Beautiful Trip for historic record. And the Minecraft movie, which I have only recently learned about this through my husband who's been telling me about this. There's like all kinds of stuff about the Minecraft movie. So there's like a scene in the Minecraft movie where apparently the children throw their popcorn and a lot of movie theaters are bad at it because they're just throwing popcorn everywhere. I don't know. But it has earned $800 million. I don't
Yeah,
know.
like
I
I
don't know what the
said,
movie's about. I have no idea.
I didn't even know this was a film until a couple of days ago. I mean, I have this is the pop culture world I have zero knowledge of and zero exposure to, for that matter.
To be fair, though, if you're going to make like this 37-second or whatever it is long song about Steve Lava Chicken and expect to make it top 10, it makes sense that it's Jack Black. It really does. I mean, he has this like, he has the comedy down, he has the aura down, but he's also musically talented. Like,
No, that's
Dinesh D is really good.
yeah, well, absolutely 100%. But though I would just ask one question. So, yes, it's cool, 37 seconds long and all that stuff. Do the charts even mean anything at this point?
I have no idea, Tim. I don't know. I've never heard this. All I know is I was getting music. There was notifications. And as a Jack Black lover, I've told you guys, so my husband leaves me for anybody. It will be for Jack Black. It would be he came in and told me this tip today, and he said it made it to the thing. I mean, I don't know if it matters. It's money. I guess money somehow equates to the charts. I'm not sure how that works anymore.
I mean, the publisher songwriter stuff is going to get kickback from YouTube or the Spotify or wherever, but it's not like you're selling millions and millions of CDs, records, tapes, etc.
I have no idea, Tim. If someone knows, call us because me and Tim don't know. But I will say it did play on Jack Black's that aura he gives, right, Tim? It plays into the aura he gives. So,
Absolutely.
anyways, if you haven't heard Steve's Chicken, whatever I just said 5 minutes ago, go look it up. Apparently, it's the top 10 song that made it. It literally lasts, 10 seconds, Tim, at best.
I think so. I saw the clip. I didn't realize it was a fully formed song. I just thought it was a promo clip for this film.
Well, to be fair, I don't think anybody thought it was a fully formed song, but for whatever reason, it's reached the charts now. So,
well, there we go. Well, congratulations to Jack Black and a film I've never heard of until 2 days ago.
Fair enough. All right, so it is my episode, and we're going to talk about songs that you probably knew were covers. We're going to talk about the covers. We're going to talk about the original version. That's the word. And a lot of these songs are ones that are more attributed to the cover version, Tim, than the original.
Okay.
So that's kind of what we're going to talk about tonight. None of these should be, I mean, me and Tim have hinted a little bit about it, but we've never really done an episode on it. So I kind of, and I did do a section on 80s rock, and I did a section on pop, and you'll see that as we go. The first one is one that I find very interesting because I've talked very heavily about this band. Tim high-fived a member of this band. And I actually love this version. Both versions, actually. It's Quiet Rise's version of Come On Feel the Noise, but the original is by Tim
Slade,
who Tim high fives. So, of course, Slade's glam rock was a huge hit, I imagine, in the UK, but then Quiet Riot's cover became popular in the United States. That's what I gathered when I was doing my research. And the fun fact about this is Quiet Riot never wanted to record it. They actually thought it was a dumb song.
Oh, well, there we go. The interesting thing is that Slade more or less is a UK phenomenon. I mean, obviously
really
you've
is.
heard of Slade.
But only for 2 songs.
Yeah, and I'm sure there are a number of people in the United States who've heard of Slade, but your average person on the street would have not heard of Slade. They are very much a UK phenomenon. And yes, I have had 2 Slade interactions. Number 1, I went to Blazers nightclub in Windsor when I went to Nationwide Building Society, and I drank Pernod. And I don't even like Pernod, but that's beside
I don't even know what Pernod is. Is it the cheapest alcohol ever?
It's an aniseed liquor.
Oh, so you were okay. Continue. Okay, yeah. I know what that is now.
And then I ended up being at the front of the conga line, and I high-fived Dave Hill from Slade. Now, and then many years later, I played the Lakeside Country Club in Frimley as part of their Christmas season and supported the band Slade. And
so you're basically a member now, by effort.
And as I may have said before, they're all very friendly. Dave Hill wasn't terribly friendly. The drummer was incredibly friendly. He was the original drummer from Slade. And in the artist bar backstage, he had a couple of ladies with him, which I think were Russian, who were possibly for hire, but they were incredibly friendly too. And then what went on after...
Such a weird statement to make, too.
Yeah, but whatever went on after we left it was their business and their business
Tim
alone.
Cannot be held accountable for any of this. So here's my question. Which version of Come On Feel the Noise did you hear? Did you know the Slade version or did you know the Quiet Riot version first?
I found out about the Quiet Riot version way after the fact. I mean, maybe 20 years ago.
That's what I was wondering, because for me, I only knew the Quiet Riot version. I'm just going to tell you. That proves my point about the American versus the UK thing. Continue.
Yeah, so I of course, knew the original version because, it's a UK phenomenon. But maybe 20 years ago, something like that was the first time I ever heard the Quiet Riot version.
It's so interesting for me. So I love Come On Feel the Noise. I mean, I love Quiet Riot. I've talked about this, but I tend to be the more bang your head metal. I'm a big fan, but... For real, though, when I was doing this, I picked this song because I wanted to know which one Tim heard first. Mm-hmm. And so that's super interesting to me. And I've talked many times on this podcast about I went down a rabbit hole trying to find the band Slade again because they weren't a phenomenon in America. I heard them once. I was like, this is amazing. I love this, right? And then I
Yeah.
could not find them for years. So there you go. Now we have talked about this, but I could not do this episode without saying it because I know Tim will have very many things to say about this MTV music video. We're going to talk about Motley Crue smoking in the boys' room, which was originally by Brownsville Station.
Yeah.
Which Tim's talked a little bit about this video, I think, on the podcast off and on.
Yeah, and again, this is probably a song that most people would not know is a cover. They would think that is the original song. I mean, it has a sort of rock and roll type feel about it, which isn't within the normal catalogue of Motley Crue. But most people would think that it is a Motley Crue song, and they probably wrote it or it was written for them.
I mean, it sounds like that playful teenage anthem. It falls into it very by just the way it sounds, to be honest.
Yeah.
But Tim talked about he loves the music video of this. We kind of discussed it leaked, I think, on one time about MTV. But I mean, it's just featuring a rebellious student, the band, smoking in the bedroom, joy bathroom. And I find it very interesting that I don't know much about Brownsville Station. Do you, Tim, like as a band? Because I really don't.
No, they're not. So they're not someone I reach for when I fire up the
Curious to
Spotify.
know if they're. I'm going to do a Google, guys. We're doing a Google Live on air. I'd be curious to know where they're from. Michigan. They're from Michigan. I don't know why, but I wondered if they were an American band or not. I just find it very interesting because I feel like the crust of a lot of music, especially in the early 90s or late 80s, early 90s on MTV, Tim, we talked about this, came from England. They just did. So I was just curious to see where they're from. But anyway, I had to throw that out there. We've talked a little bit heavily about this, but we're going to go into one that's a little bit more obscure. Tim probably knows this. I know this. This is Twisted Sister's Leader of the Pack from 1985, but it was originally done in 1964 by the Shangri-Las.
Yeah, I'm probably more familiar with the original Shangri-La's version than Twisted Sister. Twisted
so,
Sister,
too.
I think, did a number of what I would consider novelty covers like this. Also, there was a band called the Misfits, which were sort of a punk type band, and they did similarly, where they would do 50s songs and they would cover them in their own style. And Twisted Sister, I think they did another few songs in this kind of idea.
I think that's true. Because the matter is, I think those like 50s, 60s songs lead themselves to kind of like a cool leader of the pack, right? You know, like they kind of have like that like rebellion sound to them in general. So it's very easy for someone like Twisted Sister or even like if Motley Crue wanted to pick it up, right, Tim?
Sure.
I don't think it's that disingenuous. I mean, for what it's worth, it's campy, it's crunchy, it's glam metal, it's a song of a girl, but from what I was reading, it's a very split song, and it's a cult favorite of a lot of Twisted Sister people, which I find interesting because I definitely know the Shangri-La version more than I know the Twisted Sister version.
Yeah, me too. The other thing is that, like Dee Snider from Twisted Sister, I mean, in the videos and certainly in his 80s heyday, he looked a mess. And then he was tabloid newspaper or, National Enquirer fodder.
If anything was, yeah.
For all those things. And he was doing this and he was doing that. He's an incredibly smart, switched on guy. Incredibly smart.
Okay, so for those who don't know this, if you have never looked up Dee Snider, Tim is correct. And the reason I want to say this, we're not going to get into politics here. There is this very famous scene where Dee Snider went out and spoke in front of the Senate in America to not defund PBS.
Yeah.
It is absolutely wonderful. He's a very smart. I think that he has, because of the hair and the looks and the melodrama and the glam rock, there's like a stereotype around him. Very smart guy. Tim's not wrong. Like, if you go look it up, he has a lot of very interesting things he's done. He's spoken out about a lot of good things. So go on, Dee Snider.
Yeah, 100%.
But anyway, so Tim's not wrong. But I mean, the leader of the pack thing, I think, leans itself into the biker aesthetic because the leader of the pack, a biker gang. So, I mean, it made sense. It's not a bad, like, taking it from the Shangri-La and put it with Twisted Sister. So that's my theory.
Yeah.
Now, the next one is a song I think me and Tim have openly not talked on this podcast because we never want to hear it again. But we're going to talk about the original version. Guns N' Roses Knocking on Heaven's Door, which is originally done by Bob Dylan.
Absolutely. Now, this is one of these songs where there's a subset of people, certainly at the time, and probably even now, who, if you say Knocking on Heaven's Door, they will tell you it is a Guns N' Roses song
They absolutely
and
would.
will not know that it's a Bob Dylan song, and a Bob Dylan song that was famously covered by Eric Clapton 20 years before Guns N' Roses touched it.
And he wrote and performed the song in 1973. It was a soundtrack for the movie Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, which I've never watched. I can tell you that right now. I don't know what that is, Tim.
No.
Okay, well, me and Tim both are on the same plane there because we don't know what that is. But, I mean, it says so Guns N' Roses performed it live as early as 1987, but their full studio version hit was on Illusion 2 album in 1991. I mean, they're saying that like Axl's delivery kind of made it more of a howling anthem, and whereas Dylan's was more somber. I don't know. It just depends on my mood. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I could never hear Knocking on Heaven's Door ever again, and I could care less.
Yeah, I've played it in so many bands over the years. It's like it's too much. I mean, the Guns N' Roses version is good. The live version from the Freddie Mercury tribute concert that they performed was absolutely fantastic. I can tell you that on the Guns N' Roses track, Slash is not playing a Gibson Les Paul on the solo. He is playing a 1958 Flying V.
Fair enough. All right. So I'm going to bring up one that I did not know. So I'm like Tim, and we kind of pride ourselves on knowing a little bit more than the average person, though we're not that smart. But this is Sinead O'Connor. Nothing Compares to You. Did you know that is a remake, Tim?
Yes, it is a Prince song.
Yeah, so it's Prince side project from 1985. I think I had heard that before. It's called, The Family, but I hadn't really listened to it. So while Prince is obscure, Sinead O'Connor, made it heartbreaking, iconic. Of course, there's that very up close visual of Sinead O'Connor's face and amplified emotion. But I went back and listened to Prince's version because I had maybe heard this like obscurely, but it never really registered with me. And I don't know that I think Sinead O'Connor's is better.
Yeah, I think the Sinead O'Connor version is the definitive version of it. And certainly the way that it's done and the production is superb. Prince's one, when you hear it, obviously it's his song and it's his vision. And then he produced and performed it the way he had the vision for the song. But it almost sounds throwaway in the way that it's done, whereas the Sinead O'Connor is the absolute definitive article. It's like Prince wrote 52 other songs that week, and that was just one of them he wrote.
But what's interesting about the Sinead O'Connor version is apparently Prince influenced and or helped her define her version. From what I was reading, like he influenced her arrangement, which I didn't know that. It makes sense because he really, for those who have never listened to this podcast before, me and Tim talk about, he wrote, produced, influenced, probably could play what? You could put a freaking, I don't know, whatever instrument, insert here in front of Prince, and somehow he played it 74 years before, right, Tim?
Sure. Well, I mean, 100%. But
he's one of those people.
Whenever you cover a song, you don't cover it in isolation because you cover it with a notion of having heard the original. So you either go somewhere completely different with it, or if you're going to be in the same sort of idea, how it's written and how it's produced and how it's played is always going to be influencing how you cover that song.
And it's always really interesting. Like I've thought about, if you ever have never went down this rabbit hole, I don't know if you have, Tim, to find songs that you like from artists and then find the original version that someone's written. Because usually a lot of times the person who wrote it, even if they're just a mystery writer, they cut a track of it. It's always really interesting to hear their version versus what you got on the radio.
Yeah, well, the classic example of that is the Thriller album with Ted Templeman. Is that the guy's name?
Yes, it is.
Ted Templeman. Templeman. It's hard to speak on a Wednesday night sometimes.
Words are hard, Tim. It's me. I think words are hard.
Yeah. There are some demos of those songs that he demoed them before passing them on to Michael Jackson. And it's interesting to hear him sort of half singing it and it being played on keyboards and stuff like that. And then you hear the finished article.
And it just goes to show you that there's so much in music now. What you hear in the final version is outside of just the recording side of it, right? Like the producing and the tracks. Anyway, that's probably
and it's Ted
not lost on everybody.
Temperton, not Ted Temperman. That's someone different.
Ted Temperton. Whatever Tim said. Y'all, words are hard. Joy cannot, she's not the one to ask how to pronounce things. She could literally pronounce nothing. So I'm just going to say, yes, Tim, that sounds great. You're the British guy. That's so much right. So don't listen to me. All right. So the next song, I'm never going to live that down. All right. The next one is, great bite, Tim. Yeah, that's a great example of what I was trying to say. Great white, once bitten, twice shy, is what I was trying to say. And this is originally by an artist called Ian Hunter. I don't know who Ian is. No clue. But I don't think I knew that Great White's Once Bitten, Twice Shy was a cover. I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't.
Ian Hunter is the singer from Mott the Hoople. And Mott the
Okay.
Hoople is the band who did All the Young Dudes, which was actually written by David
Are
Bowie.
you speaking English right now? Are those words? What
Yeah.
the? I need you to break that down because that made no sense to me.
Okay, Ian Hunter was a singer of a band called Mott the Hoople.
Who are Mott the Hoople?
Mott the Hoople were a band that Queen supported very early on in their career. Mott the
That's the
Hoople.
most nuanced thing, Tim. You said that so casually, like I would know these words.
Mott the Hoople had famously had a song called All the Young Dudes. Even All the Young Dudes carry the news, boogaloo dudes. Carry the... You're not familiar with that song?
Absolutely not.
It's
Tim.
written by David
You're
Bowie.
speaking Spanish to me right now. I've never heard these words before. He said that so casually. Like I was like, Mark the who? Are you saying
Mott
Hooper?
the Hoople.
Okay, well, we'll take Tim's word for that because I don't know who Ian is, but Tim does apparently.
Yeah,
It's
Ian
not Ian
Hunter.
Husbands.
He's-
Ian Husbands definitely wrote Once Been Quite Shy.
Ian Hunter appeared at the Freddie Mercury tribute concert in the early 90s, performed All the Young Dudes with Def Leppard on backing vocals.
This doesn't register with me at all.
I'm
Like
surprised.
nothing
I
is
would have
happening
thought-
here.
I would have thought if nothing else, you would know that single, All the Young Dudes.
No. I have no clue what you're. Okay, well, Ian Hunter apparently is more important than that's what I did this episode. Did you hear his original version of Once Bitten, Twice Shy?
No, I'm only familiar with the Great White version. But if you talk Ian Hunter, I can speak vaguely intelligently on him.
Right, well, I cannot. So we're going to go with what Tim said. Sounds great. I mean, obviously, that's Ian Husbands. I'm just kidding. I'm just trying to put him out there.
I tell you,
Did you
Ian
write Once
Husbands
Bitten,
probably
Twice
wishes
Shy?
he was in Mott the Hoople because they were quite a big thing in the 70s.
Okay, well, I need to go down that rabbit hole. It's so interesting. This is one of those moments we talked about, Tim. Like, it was like the time that I was talking about the artist Selena. And I was like, she was a 90s phenomenon. Like, she was everywhere. That was like a thing. She was tragically killed on stage. Like, how do you not know this? And Tim was staring at me like deer in the headlights. It's weird how things translate that we don't realize. You know, you just assume people know what you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, certainly living in these parts and knowing the people that I do and working with the people that I do, I generally assume most of them have no idea about the things I like or the things I do. Or
I mean,
the things
that's fair.
I mean, you know, especially if you live, I mean, I was always a little bit of an outsider when I lived in London, and I'm sure that was probably correct for a lot of people who I bumped into, even living in London. But, you know, certainly musician types and people you'd known for a long time would have similar experiences with some of this stuff. But like here, I just generally assume nobody's going to have any idea what I'm talking about or what I'm interested in. So I have to think of other things to say. But that's what's refreshing about talking to Joy for hours every week is that
She knows generally something.
8.5 times out of 10, most of the things I talk about, she knows what I mean and what I'm into. Like, if, for example, if I'm sitting at my lunch table with my lunch friends at work and I talk about the fact that I really enjoyed listening to Blue Man Group's last album, they would have no idea what I'm talking about. But I can talk to Joy. Joy knows what Blue Man Group is.
I do not know. They're literally blue.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. You have a working
Yes,
knowledge
yeah.
of stuff.
I was making a joke, but yes.
And that's why I treasure these hours spending to
I
joy because
know. That's
I
why we
feel
spend
I
an
can
hour
talk
before we
and
even record just talking about nonsense.
yeah, but yeah, I'm still surprised you don't know who Mott the Hoople is though.
Maybe I do know the song and it's not registering. I mean, Tim's not always the greatest singer, y'all.
No, I'm a terrible singer. I'm a one trick pony. I'm a love shacker. That's all I do. That's my song. I have never no other songs, Joy. I can play 1,000 songs on guitar. I can play electric guitar,
You can
acoustic
do a
guitar.
really good sleepy version of Metallica, so I've heard.
Yeah, I mean that's not
Wait,
singing.
when
That's
do you
just
go see
talking it.
Metallica? Isn't that like this week?
Wednesday,
Wednesday, so a week from today.
a week from today. Yeah.
Y'all, if you guys listening, Tim gets to see Metallica a week from today.
Yeah, that I will be having a No Name Musicast full report on your desk once it's done.
What time is the show? I actually have no idea.
The gates open at 4. The show starts at 6. There's Suicidal Tendencies. There's Pantera Celebration, and then Metallica. I think Metallica probably starts about 8, give or take.
Gosh, Tim, I mean, your bedtime's probably like 9:30, right?
I took the next day off work.
So for those who don't know, Tim's actually 107 years old. We've talked about this on the podcast. He may be 73, he may be 47. Nobody will ever know, really.
No, and what the best thing about Metallica is literally a 20-minute walk from my office.
It is. He's right there.
Lane Stadium is so close to where I work. You can almost see it from my office. It is ridiculous that a stadium act of Metallica's caliber will be walking distance from where I work. That's never
We don't
happened.
get those here. We just don't get those. Tim's talked in length on this podcast that he regrets some of the stuff when he was so close to London that he didn't go see, right, Tim?
Yeah.
And this is about as close.
Yeah, so I'm going to knock off work about 3 o'clock. We're going to wander over there. We're going to get in the seats. I'm going to eat some incredibly overpriced, poor quality stadium food, and we're going to have a great time.
I mean, I'm very happy for you. But this is so. For those who don't know, Joy's involved with a lot of local groups that do a lot of things going on, and we have had to be like, don't do it on this day because Metallica is coming. And it's a big deal in our area. If you haven't already heard, the Inner Salmon, which we know is the most generic Metallica song ever. I don't think anybody's going to say that. It's very notoriously known as the theme song to Virginia Tech's football, sports ball, something ball team.
There's a ball thing involved.
And so that's why they're coming near us. Because me and Tim live very close to Virginia Tech.
Yep.
So with that being said, I guess we will go on to our next episode. Next episode. That's not an episode, Joy. Our next song. And this is one that I'm very familiar with. Most people are very familiar with. But I don't think a lot of people know it's a cover. It's Aretha Franklin's Respect. And it was originally done by Otis Redding.
Yeah.
So oh, go ahead. Sorry, Ted. We were both going to say something.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is an Aretha Franklin song. Yes, it's an Otis Redding song, but this is an Aretha Franklin song. I mean, yes, the original version exists. People know the original version, but Aretha owns this song.
So what's so interesting if you listen to it, I've listened to both versions coming in this episode. Otis Redding's was a weird plea from a man to a woman, whereas Aretha Franklin was a demand for women to be bold, powerful, and entirely theirs. If you've never heard, so she added the R-E-S-E-C-T, take care of TCP. That's not in the original. R-E-S-E. So that's like she added the take care of me. Like she added that. Obviously, it's become a civil rights independent anthem. It's won 2 Grammys. It was introduced into the Grammy Hall of Fame. #1 Rolling Stone song, 500 greatest songs of all time as of 2021. And even Otis admitted that girl done stole my song. Actual quote. I mean, it just gave a different, it's kind of like, this is not on the podcast, but we talked about the differences of the original Girls Just Want to Have Fun. Like, Cyndi Lauper's version just told a whole different story. Hearing a man sing Girls Just Want to Have Fun is awkward, it's weird, it didn't feel right. And I'm being honest with you, I just don't think that Otis did either.
No, absolutely. It's almost like Paul Schaefer from David Letterman's band who wrote the song It's Raining Men. It's like the people who performed it were the right people to perform it, but the thought of Paul Schaefer sitting around a piano writing those lyrics down is a little
It's
bit
weird.
weird. Yeah.
It's very weird. And the thing about it is it's very hard to sing a song like "Ari Bessie City," turn out what without having some form of sass to you, Tim. Now, I
Yeah.
will say Otis Redding. I love Otis Redding. And you guys, we've talked about I love Motown. I've been down. He just didn't have the selling skills that song needed.
No, you needed the only person who's ever worthy of a Grammy, Aretha Franklin.
Franklin, I knew that was coming. So we're speaking of Tim making a reference to David Bowie. The next one we're going to talk about is a David Bowie song, though Tim judged me a little bit for not knowing the other one. I do know this one. This is Nirvana's "The Man Who Sold the World," which was originally by David Bowie.
Absolutely. Now, Nirvana famously performed this at their Unplugged appearance. The Unplugged appearance is mostly cover versions, or a lot of cover versions. Some obscure, some not so obscure. But yes, this is an old David Bowie song. He performed it on Saturday Night Live, and he was making a big artistic statement where he was like, I was like, nailed to a board is not the right thing, but he had some kind of suit on where his arms were restricted, and he was like,
It felt like he was being held in like a sane asylum or something.
it's something like that, yeah. And so he's at the back of the stage, and two stagehands pick him up, plonk him at the front of the stage. He sings that song, and at the end of the song, they pick him up and they drop him at the back. He was making a statement, Joy.
Sometimes though, like I understand making a statement, but sometimes the statement's lost on me, and maybe that's because I'm dumb.
I would
Please
say,
don't write that in your notes, Tim. But sometimes the statement's lost on me.
yeah, I would say on the whole, most subtleties like that are totally lost on me. I'm so literal generally in
You are
life.
the most literal person I know, Tim. I mean that seriously. If you guys have never picked up on Tim's like humor bits, and maybe is it a British thing, Tim? I don't know, but you're very literal with your humor.
I think it's a me thing. I mean, as I've said before, my humor.
I hope you didn't take that as an insult. I just know you and know that that's true.
No, you're completely correct. My humor is Vic Reeves, Alan Partridge, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy,
Which is my favorite too, so that's why we bond.
and then you throw in sort of like David Letterman humor on top of that, and that's pretty much me.
I mean that fits. And the thing is, when I say jokes, a lot of times, sometimes when they hit and they don't hit, it's when I'm very literal in the moment and I'm calling out some very nuanced thing that Tim understands. Tim's like the time when he was talking about, well, they used to make elevators to fit the the people. What was it? The cat. What did you say in England? That all elevators had to fit, like
like a casket, a coffin. Yeah.
And I was asking him literal questions about how that would work. In that moment, Tim was cracking up because he understood the literal jokes that I was trying to make. But those are the jokes that sent him over the head.
Yeah, and I think that's probably why I don't really care for films, because a lot of things are like subtle and implied, and it just completely passes me by. I mean, I'm not stupid, but like sometimes like a metaphor in a film or like a line or something.
You had to add that. I'm not stupid.
It just completely the nuance is that completely escapes me.
Makes it even funnier. Okay, it's kind of like when we were talking about Vegas and how it just feels like a fever dream. We were like giving the literal jokes about Vegas. Anyway.
Yeah, but I think I love Vegas. But Vegas is Las Vegas, Nevada is the best and the worst of the United States in an 8-mile stretch of road. Everything that's great about the United States and everything that's terrible about it is represented in 8 miles with neon.
No one's going to do anything else when they come to America. Just drive through Vegas and you get a general understanding of the best and the worst.
Yeah, crass consumerism and the finest shows, the finest food, the finest of finest. It's all there. Boom.
The Jonas fixation of it is just amazing. Anyway, all right. So this is another one that Tim will know. I think our listeners would generally know this, but maybe not outside of that. But I couldn't do an episode about covers without talking about Joe Cocker's version of with a little help from my friends, which was originally by the Beatles.
Yeah. Now, what Joe Cocker did with this was amazing. The Beatles song is sung by Ringo, and it's kind of poppy
Right, and
and
funny,
fun, and
and
it's on Sergeant Pepper. It's the summer of '67. It's the
we
summer
need to
hit.
like jamming, but nobody could see us. We were both moving our arms to the
Yeah.
rhythm. We knew what was happening.
But Joe Cocker took the same lyrics and he created a brand new song. It is a completely different song. The way that it's arranged, the way that it sounds, it is totally different.
It's soulful, it's gritty, it's powerful. I mean, his performance at Woodstock, I think, cemented it. If you haven't seen Joe Cocker's version of at Woodstock when he did his version of With a Little Help from My Friends, but I think that was the solidifying moment. But what was so interesting about this song is, we all know what would I mean? We all know the rhythm pretty well, right? And we can hear the Beatles version and we can hear the Joe Cocker version. But there's just like an extra soul to it that sold it about getting by with a little help from your friends. There's such a very interesting statement in that. And if you've ever had a time in your life where you've struggled or where life is hard, what do? We all kind of like rely on our friends to be there for us. Or family, I think, can be a friend too. And he like define that, I think, in that moment when he did the Woodstock version. It also became the theme song for the TV show The Wonder Years.
Yeah,
You never watched
a
Wonder
TV
Years?
show I've never seen, but I was familiar with that. Now, the Woodstock version, of course, is the definitive version. However, I would say
Oh, I knew Tim was going to say that.
the version from the Queen's Jubilee concert in the early 2000s is
Amazing.
probably the best one because Brian May is playing guitar.
I mean, I would agree with you. I think though, like that kind of like that trends in between the poppy, like, y'all, my watch is talking. If you guys hear my watch, ignore that. But Joy doesn't stand still and she's knocking her video and Tim can't see her, so we're watching she's working out at all times. So with that being said, I think Tim's right, but I think the solidifying version, I think you're right. That is a better version. I've heard that version, but that was like that moment where it just kind of like changed it from that light fun and it had more grit to it. It had more feel. And I feel like if you ask, I don't know who wrote, do you know who wrote With a Little Help from My Friends?
I think it's a Ringo song. I think.
That checks out. With that being said, I feel like if you asked them, they would tell you the Joe Cocker version was better.
Now,
I feel like they would know that.
did you know that later on in his career, Joe Cocker covered "You've Got to Hide Your Love Away"?
Yes.
And he did it in a very similar fashion as "Little Help from My Friends."
But I'm going to say I did like it better than the Beatles. Did
Yeah,
you prefer it? I didn't. I like that song a little better from the Beatles.
Yeah, I mean, the Joe really only had this formula once that was great.
But I think that the reason it's set is when you listen to the "What would I say when it's in the would you say it and walk out on me?" Maybe that rhythm works so well. And sorry, I'm gonna insult Ringo a little bit. It's kind of campy. It's not hard on the ear. There's nothing that it's not a lot of substance, Tim. It doesn't add a lot to the song.
No, I mean, let's be realistic here. Let's be realistic. Ringo is not a good singer.
And he's like a B minus songwriter.
Yeah, but guess what? He was
Not
in
like
the
I can write a song.
He
I'm like
was in the Beatles.
-4.
And he was the drummer in the Beatles, which makes him an absolute legend. And of
No.
course,
I mean, the thing about it is I absolutely love this song, and it went on. And I like both versions. Like I've listened and sang both versions a million times. Like I'm acting like I'm like he's Ringo, Tim. But I'm just saying, as far as the song goes, I think the song lends to the ability for someone to take it and run with it, because the original version was very bare, for lack of a better way of saying it. You know what I mean, Tim? Like there wasn't a lot there. You can hear what can I mean, it's literally speak singing when Ringo's doing it in and of itself.
have you heard or seen that Ringo has released a country album this year?
I have not.
I
I
heard
have
some
feelings
clips of
about
it.
that I don't want to know about.
I've heard some clips of it on NPR.
Oh, no.
And if you imagine some very good country session people with Ringo going, "Oh, and it's I love the country
no, bless
ways."
him.
It's not good.
He
But
doesn't
again,
have a
he's a
country
Beatle.
sounding voice in any way.
Yeah, peace and love. Peace and love.
He
But again,
literally,
he's a Beatle. He can do anything he wants.
yeah, do whatever you want. Who cares? But Penny's a really good person. Outside of being a Beatle, he's like a really good person.
And
Like,
also, he looks so he's the oldest Beatle still alive, and he
I
looks
mean,
great. I know he
me and
dyes his
Tim have
hair,
talked many
but
times that being a Beatle doesn't make you a good person. John Lennon would literally walk up and punch people.
yeah, the
So,
remaining two Beatles are very good people, and the previous Beatle that we lost in the early 2000s
George
also a
Harrison was
good person.
great.
Yeah,
Good dude, but John Lennon would just punch you if you just. That was probably the drugs.
probably. Well, you know
Probably.
that story about at the Dakota. He
Yeah.
he is in his flat or apartment at the Dakota building. He's got
Mhm.
Keith Richards and Yoko there, and Keith Richards is shooting up heroin in his
Of course he
apartment.
was.
And John Lennon wanted to be a rock star and shoot heroin up with with Keith Richards. So he
As you
shoots
do.
yeah, so he shoots this heroin up, and then he spends the next 12 hours vomiting. And then apparently Yoko has got his hair. Holding his hair up over the toilet as he's vomiting, and she's going, John, you know you can't handle it. You can't handle it, John. You know that.
Like, why do this to yourself? And I feel that in that moment because, like, my only equivalent of that is dealing with a drug person and nothing more knowing than dealing with a drunk friend, Tim.
Yeah.
Like, it's infuriating because you're like, why did you do this to yourself? You did this to yourself in this moment. Why?
Yeah.
And we've all talked about the sexism that has bescored Yoko's name. But anyway, me and Tim, we love the Beatles, but we will not stray away from the fact that John Lennon was not always a great person.
No, and then justice for Yoko.
Justice for Yoko. Anyway, we're probably going to get written in a book somewhere. We're going to be on a list. But anyway, I mean, Paul McCartney, honestly, for me, Tim, is the ultimate Beatle.
I think so, yes. Purely from a career perspective, absolutely 100%.
So just like as a person, and when I think of someone that I was joking about Prince being able to do anything. Paul McCartney, you could, I swear, Tim, you could invent an instrument today. Put it in front of him, and if you gave him 24 hours, he'd figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, he's a drummer, bassist, guitarist, keyboards, plays all kinds of stuff. So many of his albums, like McCartney 1, 2, and 3, he plays all the instruments on them.
That's actually crazy to me. So, as far as music goes, all right, back to the episode though, because we got off track. What's new? Anyway, so this is one that I like. I prefer the original, but we're going to talk about the cover. This is Whitney Houston's versions of "I'm Every Woman." The original was by Shaka Khan.
Yeah, I would go that the Shaka Khan version is the better version. For me, I mean, we've covered Whitney before, and Whitney was a great singer. She came up, had some iconic songs, but I would say Shaka Khan is where it's at with this song.
I would
This
too.
is a 70s disco masterpiece, and you cannot
Amazing.
You cannot get better than this. The Whitney version is kind of meh for me.
So the reason I brought it up was, first of all, I'm Team Shaka Khan 100%. I have been for years. I will always be that person. But the song is obviously female empowerment. We love a female queen. I think Whitney in and of herself was in a moment, because it was like mid 90s where there was a lot going on in her life. Now, this was featured on the Bodyguard soundtrack,
Yep.
which, if you know anything about Whitney, it also peaked at number 4 on the Billboard. But I mean, I'm with Tim. I prefer, but when I was doing research, a lot of Shaka Khan's version, Shaka Khan, Shaka Khan. I always think of that song. Let me finish Shaka Khan. What is that from, Tim?
It's a song I feel for you.
As okay, I feel for you. Okay, yes. What is who sings that?
It's a Shaka Khan song.
I feel for you. I love that. Like, oh, it's literally
It was
Shaka
originally
Khan.
a Prince. It was
But
originally a
who's
Prince
the one
song.
saying Shaka Khan in the background?
Oh, it's some rapper character. I don't know who
Okay.
that is.
That's it, though. I feel for you.
But that was
I think
originally
I
a Prince
love
song.
You. Okay. I'm not crazy. I always, every time I hear Shaka Khan, my brain always goes Shaka Khan. But it's anyway. That's not related. That was a sub Reddit or whatever you would have got. But with that being said, I mean, I love Whitney, but I will say I'm Team Shaka Khan on this one, because the thing about Shaka Khan's voice is, one, amazing voice. Like she could literally sing the phone book. Like Tim was talking about Aretha Franklin. I would put her up there as maybe the next person to sort maybe getting a Grammy.
Hmm.
But I mean, we appreciate Whitney and I'm every woman. It's a ballad. Everybody knows it.
Yeah, Shaka Khan, as I like to call her, Yvette Stevens.
Tim is not as cool of a Tim as Sean Khan. I like how I give you the most mumbling, weird version of that. You're like, I feel for you. That's why we get each other. It's like a lot of people I would do that. I'd be like, what are you doing? But if you watch, thank you, Mother, for making me watch VH1 in the 80s. So Joy knows her Shaka Khan.
Oh, I mean, Shaka Khan is amazing, absolutely amazing.
I rank her up there with like I feel like her and like the Scissors. Like, I don't know. It doesn't matter. Let's go ahead. All right. The next song. It's one that everybody knows. Everybody knows this version, but Tim and me probably know the original. Maybe 30% do. This is Jimi Hendrix, All Along the Watchtower, which was originally done by Bob Dylan.
Yeah, and another one where it's a classic song that is Bob Dylan's, but becomes something bigger when it leaves Bob. And now you find that with a lot of Bob Dylan music, is that he has written amazing songs, but his performance style is an acquired taste. There's only so much
that
Dylan.
taste is lost on me.
Yeah, there's only so much Dylan that you can absorb in one sitting, which is maybe two or three songs max. But in the hands of other musicians, they become something very different. We spoke about Knocking on Heaven's Door and All Along the Watchtower as well. Famously, iconically, a Jimi Hendrix song and performance, but of course, it originates from Bob Dylan.
Well, what's interesting to me when I think about Bob Dylan, I've said this on this podcast 1,000 times, and I mean this truly, and I know Tim knows this as a musician. Songwriting and performing are two very different arts. They just are. I don't even think they're related. Now, some people can do both, right, Tim? Mm-hmm. But I just don't think they're related. I think Bob Dylan is a great songwriter. Amazing songwriter, actually. Some of the most beautiful songs of our generation, last generation, probably the generation came from Bob Dylan. He's one of those people that, almost like Prince, that I said has done everything in the background. But his version is interesting because it's stripped down, it's acoustic, whereas, Hendrix made it electrified, emotional, intense. And that's what everybody credits with this song. And when I was doing the research, obviously this became Hendrix's biggest hit. It's known as a guitar masterclass of sorts, right? Mm-hmm. And Bob Dylan said it overwhelmed me. I didn't even recognize it when I first heard it. That was his first reaction to hearing Jimi Hendrix version.
There we are. I mean, and that is the mark of a good songwriter, that your song can be interpreted in so many different ways. Yet it still has the central theme of the original. Now, I'm going to
ask you something controversial, Tim. What do you think of Jimi Hendrix's guitar playing?
I think I'm not a fan of Jimi Hendrix's guitar playing. If you're asking me honestly, I think he's incredibly overrated. I think that his performances, especially not so much studio, but any live performance you hear of him, is sloppy and it's out of tune. And
yep. That's what I always hear. I hear attitude.
Yeah. And I think that there are other guitar players in that era which probably carry more influence than Jimi Hendrix. Now, if you say that to another guitar player, and I'm sure there are guitar players listening to this podcast,
grieving at you right now.
Yeah, think I'm completely out of my mind. But I've never been a fan. And I've never cited Jimi Hendrix as an influence in my guitar playing at all. People talk about him, he's like the greatest thing ever. But I don't know. I'm going to say something controversial. I think that he's a good showman. That's what it is. So there's the it factor, Tim. We've talked about this many times. A lot of artists who make it just have an it factor about them. There's something interesting. There's something that catches people's attention and they link to it for good or for bad. I think he's interesting to watch. I think he was a good showman, not necessarily in the sense of the lead singer of Aerosmith or something, right? I'm not talking about Steven Tyler and his showmanship, but there's something about them that people link to. And I think that sold him very well. And of course, the whole Woodstock thing. But if you listen to
It's completely out of tune, Tim. Like, it's
Yeah,
very out of tune.
a lot of these live performances are so sloppy, and people go, "Oh man, it's the '60s, you don't understand." But like Eric Clapton was in tune, Jeff Beck was in tune, Peter Green was in tune. I mean,
The Who was in tune.
yeah, all that stuff. I don't understand that. I mean, as we've said before, if you love Jimi Hendrix and Jimi Hendrix is your thing, listen to it, enjoy it, love it. It's
Yes.
great. But even as a guitar player, I don't get Jimi Hendrix.
I think that it's just like I was saying, it's just that it factor that registered with people. But like, even if you don't have the ability to play the guitar, if you're it's very obviously out of tune, Tim. His
Yeah.
most iconic guitar piece is very obviously out of tune.
Yeah,
All right, well,
I honestly, I don't know, but that's my personal opinion on the world of Jimi Hendrix. You can shout at me all you want and tell me I'm wrong, but that's me.
what is it I always say? Don't come for me, internet. It's just my theory. Don't come for Tim. All right. Well, how much time do you think we have? Do we have time for two more?
Yeah, we have I'd say about 8 minutes, give or take.
All right. Well, let's go with the first one, and then if we have time for the second one, we'll do this. Now, I'm gonna skip ahead because I do want to talk about this song because it's a little bit more obscure. Because I don't think people know the cover; they know the original. So George Michael did a version of "I Can't Make You Love Me," which was originally by Bonnie Raitt. Now, my question is, Tim, have you heard George Michael's version?
No, I'm very familiar with the Bonnie Raitt version, though it doesn't surprise me that George Michael would have covered it because he was an incredibly well-schooled musician who would have probably loved Bonnie Raitt's playing and Bonnie Raitt's songs and songwriting. So it doesn't surprise me that he would have covered that.
So it's one of those MTV Unplugged things. That's where it comes from.
Okay.
So if you've never went back to the listeners of this podcast and listened to just MTV Unplugged, go on your YouTubes and put it in. You'll find many things. We were talking about it earlier with the Nirvana's. Famously, their Unplugged is probably the most one that's probably spoken about in the music realm. But he did a version of it, and it was super interesting. I listened to it. There was a lot of, the song in and of itself, I can't make you love me if you don't. Like, it's very vulnerable in and of itself, right? Mm-hmm. But his version had emotion, that vocal precision that he has. Like, he has... if you guys are not familiar, I know that there is a lot of people who think of, like, George Michael as just being a very pop artist. We have been Team George Michael on this podcast, I think, since the beginning. He has a great, he can sing anything. He was very short-lived. There's a lot of trauma there and a lot of, I think, things around him that didn't let him be the artist he could have been. Mm-hmm. But his voice is phenomenal. Amazing. I think didn't we even talk about he did a duo with Aretha Franklin in one of the episodes. I talked about that. But anyway, his version, Tim, I'm sorry, I love Bonnie Raitt, but he next level. If you've never heard it, go give it a YouTube, listen to it. And it's frequently, when I was doing the research, it's frequently cited as one of the best live vocal covers of the decade.
Yeah, and if you have Paramount Plus and you live in the United States, all of the MTV Unplugs are currently streaming on Paramount Plus. We do not have Paramount Plus because I don't like paying for TV.
That's fair. But I will say, go on the YouTubes if you can, if nothing else. But this version, Tim, and it was also used for a charity, which is always amazing. George Michael did a lot for charity. I mean, I love Bonnie Raitt. Don't get me wrong. Her version's amazing. It's the first one that comes in mind, but I had never even heard this until I started doing research for this episode. And his version came up and I was like, what do you mean? And I went and listened and my God, Tim, heartbreaking. Just killed it. 10 out of 10. If you're not a George Michael fan, you should be. All right, we're going to talk about one that is the last thing we're going to leave you with. This is an artist that I love. It's a song that I love. I think me and Tim have hinted about this is the better. It's just known as the better version. It's No Doubt. It's My Life. The original was by Talk Talk.
Yes. Now, there was a period of time when I used to listen to Absolute Radio, or I think it was called Virgin Radio at the time. I was working a job in Acton, which is in West London, and they used to have a radio in their warehouse, and they played it was either Absolute Radio or Virgin Radio, whatever it was called. And
Hmm.
Talk Talks, It's My Life was in the charts. And it got to the point where on their rotation, they were playing both versions. It's like you
I mean,
couldn't
they're both
escape it.
good. I will say, I love No Doubt. I was an early 90s adapter of all things No Doubt. I'm sure I knew it before I knew the Talk Talk version, but the way Gwen Stefani, like, makes it like, well, I don't know if it's Gwen Stefani, but whoever, like, arranged that music track, right, Tim? The way they did it with her is it's very interesting. Like it's like telling a story. The Talk Talk version's great, but I don't know. It's hard. I could listen to both, to be honest, Tim. I like both versions. I don't know that but I will say, of all the most recognizable covers, I think It's My Life by No Doubt is probably up there in the top.
Yeah, I would probably say that for me at least, the Talk Talk version is the definitive version.
Old man.
Yeah, I mean, I don't dislike the other version, but for me, Talk Talk probably eclipses, no doubt.
I don't I now I'm gonna say it. It's probably my age too, no offense. Because you guys gotta think, Talk Talk came out in 1984. It's My Life, by No Doubt came out in 1999. And
Yeah.
it was re-released in 2003. So I was in high school, middle school for me, and that was very iconic. But it just has that rock synth blend. Like that just it does honestly, I don't think it even matters who sings it. It's just a really good song.
Yeah, no, I mean both songs are great, but I would say for me at least the original is probably the one I would reach for if I wanted to scratch that itch.
Well, me and Tim we're gonna disagree on this, y'all. I'm gonna say No Doubt. Who would have guessed? All right, Tim, what would you like to leave the people with?
Okay, as we're talking about cover versions, I just want to just mention one thing. Now, we might have said this before, and this is probably more for our UK listeners, but people do not know that the Status Quo song
I
in
knew that
the,
was coming.
in the Army Now is a cover version. It's effectively a note for note cover version of a song which was by a Dutch duo called Bolland and Bolland. They released it in 1981. The Status Quo version came out in 1986. It's one of these things that nobody knows is a cover. And if you pull up on YouTube the video of the Bolland and Bolland version and listen to it, the song is identical. And people just go, really? Really?
No.
I thought this was a Quo song.
My thing is that what I'm wondering is which one's used in that movie in the Army Now?
I don't know.
Oh, let's look it up, y'all. I'm Googling it. We're gonna give it a goo. Because which one is because like I mean there's a movie called In the Army Now. Okay, hold on. In the Army Now movie soundtrack. Oh, it's the Bullet and what did you say? Bullet and Bullet? I don't
Bolland
know.
and Bolland.
That's the version that's in the movie In the Army Now.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have no idea. I've never really compared the two. Now I need to go back and listen because, like, to be honest, for those who are not, those who are in the UK, like Status Quo is one of those bands that Tim's brought up many times. I've talked to many people who are part of the Freak Jam about this band. You guys all talk about it pretty regularly, but it's almost an anomaly here in America.
Yeah, nobody really knows of Status Quo in the United States. They did not crack the US market at
We
all.
barely know Rocking All Over the World, and that's the extent of it.
Yeah, they're talking about covers. I didn't realize that's a John Fogerty song. I thought it was a Status Quo song, and it's only years after the fact I found out.
And John Fogerty has the best hair and or like chops. What are they called, Tim? On the side of his face. Can't
Mutton
think of his name.
chops.
Yeah, his are very intense. They're rating up there with Mungo Cherry.
There we go.
All right. Well, and also, if I ever have to hear that baseball song by John Fogerty again, I'll jump out the window. All right. What would you like to leave the people with?
I would say just be kind to everyone that you meet.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
To remind me of another day to